Passions, beliefs, life stories, helpful resources for the senior living journey. Discover it all here as we get to know our residents, employees, and partners one-on-one. Welcome to the People of Arete Living Pod. Today we're getting to know Sarah Silva, President of Arete Living, a senior living management and development organization overseeing Avamere Communities, the Stafford, and Ovation. Since Sarah's beginnings with Avamere in 2001 as a caregiver, Sarah has served in multiple leadership roles, including Executive Director, Memory Care and Leadership Development, and most recently Regional Director of Operations before assuming her current role as President. Sarah is passionate about enhancing the quality of care provided in senior living across the country, leading her to serve as Baldrige Quality Award Examiner for the American Healthcare Association. She sits on the National Center for Assisted Living Board of Directors as the Secretary and Treasurer, their Assisted Living Task Force, and their Quality Committee. Sarah is also a member of the OHCA Quality and Compliance Council. This Women's History Month theme is celebrating women who tell our stories. In honor of this observance, we're excited to welcome Sarah to share her career journey and more. This special episode is hosted by Zanele Mutepfa-Rhone, decorated culture and diversity strategist, speaker, and activist serving Arete Living.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Zanele.
I am so excited for this conversation. I've just had such an incredible time over the last couple of years getting to work with you and getting to know you. And I kept telling Thomas, oh my gosh, I want people to hear her story and to get to know her in the ways that we've had the pleasure of getting to know you and working with you. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm very excited for our talk.
Me too. Now, I know that you have been a part of Arete Living for a long time, and even were a part of it when it was a part of Avamere family of companies. And so I'm just curious, what was your first position and what were some of your most memorable experiences?
Well, my first position with Avamere ever was in 2001. I was a caregiver at Avamere Hillsborough. Mm-hmm. That was my first job within this company. And it was caregiver and a med tech, and I just loved the community. It was very new to Hillsborough. I lived in Hillsborough and went to high school in Hillsborough. So when Avamere built Avamere Hillsborough, was the best in class in the area, and we were excited to have the opportunity to work there, and it was a wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm. I love that part of your story because I think sometimes when you are a caregiver, you look at the presidents, you look at the RDOs, you look at people in leadership and you think, oh my gosh, how did they get there? Would I ever get to that position? And that's what I love about your story is that you know what it's like to be a caregiver. You know what it's like to serve firsthand seniors and take care of them. So I love that. I've just always been curious though, what drew you to senior living? What makes it so passionate for you?
Well, I think that like so many people in senior living, most people don't grow up and as a child think, I want to work in senior living one day. It's not a common career path that people know about when they're younger. And something I will give the Hillsborough School District credit for is they had a program when I was in high school that you could go through your CNA program as part of your education. And I will be honest, and at the time I saw that and I knew I wanted to work in healthcare, but I also recognized it as a senior in high school as an opportunity to leave school for about 2 hours a day, 3 days a week to go to your clinicals. And the first round of when we went into nursing homes was my first real experience at that point of working with seniors. And I just loved it. I realized very quickly that it was something that I could be very passionate about.
I love that because I'm thinking some of us will be thinking about, how do I get out of this so I can go hang out with my girlfriends? But no, you're like, how do I get out of class so I can work on my career? And I think that's just amazing. As a former caregiver myself, I think that it is really powerful to see someone like you leading an organization, because I can admit even for myself that when you're a caregiver, you're probably looking at regional directors, you're looking at the presidents, you're looking at people that are in leadership positions, and you wonder, how did they get there? Can I get there? So I love that you're a living testament of that work. What continues to grow your passion in it? right? Because it hasn't been a very easy industry for the last few years, especially. But what makes you wake up every day and choose it again and again?
Our residents are here. They need us no matter what is happening in the world, and no matter how challenging the industry can be. And to know that every day our caregivers are showing up and our med techs are showing up, and they did that in the middle of a global pandemic. They did that with putting their own personal health at risk to make sure that their residents were taken care of. And if they're going to continue to do that on a daily basis, then it just motivates me every morning to get out of bed and do everything I can to help make sure they're as supported as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just in the beginning of our partnership, that was one of my favorite terms. I believe it was right in the middle of the pandemic. And you had done a presentation as well with Thomas on the call. And I heard you all regard to the frontline staff as frontline heroes. And that's what they are every day. And I feel like the way that you lead shows people that you do look at them as heroes. And if they're doing the work, so are you. So that is absolutely amazing. I think maybe might have a little bit to do with the fact that the roles that they have are similar roles that you have built yourself up to the one that you're in right now. Can you tell us a little bit about the roles that you've held?
Oh, well, I do like to joke with people that I've held almost every job in senior living at this point. Even before my first role with Avamere, my first role ever in assisted living, a little before that, I worked as a server at an assisted living in Hillsborough. So I started dining room server, and then after I did that CNA program, became a caregiver, and then was a med tech, which I maintain. I still think being a med tech was my favorite job that I've ever held. I still find it to be fascinating, and I love the clinical component to what we do. But then I went through and just pretty much every management role from there. Became an RCC. We'll always tell people that when you walk into a building, hug the RCC. That is a heck of a job. And the way they show up every day is just phenomenal. But then receptionist, front desk, business office manager, assistant administrator, memory care administrator, and then executive director.
Now, for our audience and listeners who might not know what RCC means, what does that stand for?
That's the resident care coordinator. So in any community that you go into, you have a resident care coordinator who holds this gigantic job. They're typically the direct supervisor of our caregivers. And very often are also responsible for the schedule, which that's a huge portion of the job. But also, the job title is accurate. They're the resident care coordinator. Part of their job is ensuring every resident service plan is accurate and up to date and outlines exactly the services that resident has requested and wants and is personalized for them.
Absolutely.
They really are just the center of what we do.
That's a ton of work.
It is.
And it sounds like, including the RCC job, you wore a lot of hats. How did you get through that? What support did you have? I know that I've spent quite a bit of time with a lot of our staff in different buildings, and I see that their schedules are incredibly huge, right? And so I'm just curious, when you were going through your career and going through all of these hats, who is your support system?
Well, everywhere that I've worked, I believe I've just been incredibly blessed in every position that I've had a mentor, that I've had a coach, that the people that I was working with or for were always supportive of me and were always interested in my career development. And as long as I remained curious about what I could do and what more I could learn, I always had an incredible support system around me.
One of the main reasons why I love just your diverse roles that you've had in this career path that you've built for yourself is that you're relatable. There really isn't anything that someone can go through that makes you go, okay, that's completely new. There's an angle to it that you can say, okay, I can relate to that and share your story with them, but then also be able to customize the resources that you provide, staff and employees, how you show up for your team. And so tell me a little bit about how the experiences that you've had at Arete now have equipped you to provide resources for your employees.
Well, I think that kind of like any leadership position, having the background and the experience of having been through the jobs, I think does give me a slightly unique perspective as a leader, because there's frequently times that somebody will come up with what could be a wonderful idea or some massive strategic plan. without necessarily looking at it through the lens of the caregiver and through the lens of the med tech or through the lens of the server, and knowing that at the end of the day, I'm not the important one in this organization. They are, because they're the ones taking care of the residents. And so as long as we create plans and support structures with them in mind, then we know that our residents are well cared for. And at the end of the day, that's the ultimate goal. So it allows me to be able to see through that lens. But that being said, I'm not a caregiver today. So I think the other piece is the ability to listen.
That's right.
The ability to understand that the experience that I had 10 years ago, 15 years ago, doesn't necessarily translate to an experience today equally. But the ability to listen and understand that I need to be able to hear what is happening today and make sure that I don't create plans or try to implement something that I think even through the lens of the experience that I have would be great, but have that blind spot of having it not meet today's environment.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I know is that when you were holding several hats in the beginning of your career, life didn't stop at home, right? And that's just the reality with all of us. We go into work, we do what we have to do, but then we also have our home to take care of. And in the beginning of your career, for a short period of time, you were a single mom.
I was.
Tell us a little bit about that experience and how you were able to balance some of the work that you had here, but then also going home and supporting your son.
Yeah, actually, so it was when I was at Avamere Hillsborough. I was a single mom to my oldest son, Anthony. And he would tell you to this day, both him and my youngest son, Jacob, grew up in communities. And every picture that I have of them, often when he was a baby, I have him doing the Easter egg hunts at Avamere communities, and pictures of him with Santa at employee Christmas parties at Avamere. And he really did kind of grow up in the communities with me. I know that there are a lot of people who are doing this work as single moms, and I can appreciate that it is hard. It is very challenging to try to make it on your own and try to parent a child, and daycare issues because your shift starts at 6 a.m., but daycare doesn't open till 7, and making it through those pieces and building that support system around myself and my son to make sure that we had what we needed to survive at that point. But I've also been very, very lucky and very blessed in my life that I do have a great support system. I have a great family and a great family support system. So it was, I will say I probably had more resources than many people.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I relate with that quite a bit. My mom was a caregiver and a single mom. She lost her husband to cancer when I was 5. And just seeing her schedule, it wasn't the regular 8 to 5. I always told people, I'm like, my mom does 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7 all the time. And it was never an actual routine. She just picked up hours when she could. And if I recall back then how spontaneous her schedule was, I don't know how we would have survived it without a community, without a support system, without a variety of people coming in and checking in on us. And so I relate with that so much. And I know how much work it could be, but so grateful for the sacrifices my mom made in order to make sure we were good. And also make sure the residents that she was serving were good too.
Yeah, you do end up with a lot of variability to scheduling. Something that I will never forget. Or at times when, something I know continues to be a huge issue for people today comes down to daycare and childcare, picking up night shifts where Anthony could stay overnight with my sisters or his grandma, and I would work night shift and pick him up on the way home. And then you would just keep your fingers crossed and pray that he would take a nap in the morning. Everyone does what they have to do for their family.
Absolutely. What are they like now? Are they so proud of you and seeing how far you've come?
They're just incredible. I have the two boys, call them boys. I have 2 men.
How old are they now?
Anthony is 23 and Jacob is 19. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, they are fully grown, graduated college and high school this last year.
God,
so,
I love that.
Yeah, my husband Adam and I are just about to experience being empty nesters, which is mind-boggling to me still.
And probably going to be very unfamiliar for a while. I'll fill it up with date nights.
Yes.
When you're not working, of course. So what were your career goals, I want to dig a little bit deeper in your journey. What were your career goals early on? I know we talked about in high school, it's not like you said that this was going to be your career, but I want to know, at what moment did you actually start kind of planning out what you wanted to do? And what did those goals look like, and how did they line up with what you're doing now?
Well, the earliest healthcare career goal I could think of was when I was in high school. And part of why I was drawn to that CNA course is that I intended to go to college and wanted to be a doctor. Mm-hmm. That was my plan. That plan didn't quite work out. I instead became a single mother and went through a CNA program and started in senior living. And it really, I think that the first few years in particular, it was really was more survival mode. I didn't intend to pursue an ongoing career in senior living. I needed to make ends meet, and I learned that I loved what I did. And then I was incredibly fortunate. I met my husband when my oldest was only a year old. And as I started to have that support structure around me, I remember that it was the first time I really, really thought about it. I was a med tech, and this incredible director of health services at a community was sitting down and talking to me and asked me if I would be interested in applying for an open position at the front desk, which in my mind, I was like, well, I have no experience doing that. I wouldn't even know where to start. And it just kind of snowballed from there. Yeah. Honestly, like it was every time that I would take a role, I would within that community or within that company, there was someone who would then sit me down and have conversations about my career development. And honestly, by the time I was even done with that first position of being a receptionist, my executive director had asked me if I would be interested in, like, what does your career path look like? Would being an executive director or an administrator be something you would ever be interested in? And without that guidance, without that push, without that somebody having that faith in me to say, this is where you are today, but where could you be in 5 years? Because we see something in you. I would never, ever be where I am today. Somebody had not sat me down and just taken the time that she didn't need to take to ask me and help set me up on that path.
I love that so much. What I'm hearing from you is that community is vital. Building a support system in your personal life is vital, so you can focus at work. But I'm also hearing a lot of mentorship, sponsorship, people willing to make a bet on you, to take a bet on you and to support you. What advice do you have for those who are in the middle of their career? They're wanting to advance, they're wanting to develop, they're looking around to kind of figure out, where is that support system, right? Like, who can help me? Who can I look into and tap on their shoulder and ask to mentor me? Because it's so amazing to hear people were investing in you, but sometimes we have to ask for that help. So what advice do you have for folks who are wanting to develop in their career and inspired by listening to yours?
I would encourage them to be curious, to ask for time with the people around you. Ask for time, even if it's something as simple as, can I spend an hour with you watching you do your job? Maybe you're out there and you're a caregiver and you have no idea what the business office manager does, but you might be curious about it. Then ask. One thing that is pretty consistently true is people are very happy to share their own stories. So you sit down and ask any role in the organization, I'd like to know more about this. I think more often than not, you're going to hear a yes out of that person. And even if that role isn't within a community, if that's something that you want to see out of a home office employee, if it's something that you want to see out of another community outside of your own, you have to be willing to take the first step, and you have to be willing to ask. So I would second that with that challenge to our leaders, any leader in our organization, that there will always be people out there who are going to be afraid to ask. And that's a core part of our job. Reach out to people, sit down with people on your team, or maybe not even on your team. Take the time to point out when you see something in someone, because you have no idea what that simple statement of, I see something in you and I'd like to sit down and talk to you for 5 minutes. That 5 minutes could change that person's life.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's our job as leaders, is to find that and help people.
I love that. I think about the most pivotal moments in my career that just skyrocketed the trajectory of it were 5 minutes that someone took to invest in me. A 5-minute call, 5-minute email, an introduction, 5-minute introduction to the next person. Those are the moments that changed everything for me. And sometimes I think it's good for people to hear stories like yours, think, really, that's all it takes? Because I thought I would have to invest all of this time. It's like, no, we have a lot in us that could help the next person. So I love that. Well, speaking of leadership, I know that about 70% of senior leadership positions held in the senior living industry is held by women, but only 17% is held by CEOs that are women. And so I'm curious with your career and how it's progressed. Did you have any challenges being a woman in the senior living industry? And if you did, what were some of the challenges that you faced?
Yeah, I think that there's one thing about senior living is because there are so many women in senior living in general, it's easy to have a group. It's easy to have a support system. Yeah. But yes, I do think that, once you reach a point of kind of that C-suite level leadership, I really had to go and find it. Just like what we're encouraging our team members to do, and be curious and reach out and look for your support structure if that's what you need. I needed to do that too. One thing that's always been amazing, with Arete and prior to Arete with Avamere is that so many of my peers within the Avamere family of companies were also women. Yeah. So I had a built-in support system between the president of Infinity Rehab, Jolynn, or the president of Signature being Mary, the president of originally Ovation being Nicolette. These women have been, we really all kind of moved into these roles in similar times. So I've been incredibly blessed to be surrounded by strong women in this role. Absolutely. Pretty much as long as I've been in this job. And there's a lot of times, especially as you're working with outside companies or outside partners, that you do get used to being the only woman in the room.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, some of those women I know personally, and they're incredibly strong and brilliant, and nice to have that team around you rooting for you. If you were to look back at any of when you just started progressing into certain leadership positions, were there any where you thought, okay, this is my moment to actually not only progress in my career, but I want more? Was there a position that made you feel that way?
Before I was in the president role, I was in a regional director role. And I think that first of all, I never thought this role would come available because the woman who was here before me was here for a very, very long time. I just wanted to work for her.
Yeah.
That was, and when she moved and transferred within our company was going to another part of the company, it really was the first time I think I even considered the possibility of this particular role. Yeah. But I mean, honestly, Zanele, even at that, I wouldn't have applied for it if she hadn't encouraged me to do it. So I think it just comes down to, I was lucky enough to be surrounded by some very, very strong women who encouraged me all the way along the way. And sometimes we're the people who would, pinch my arm and say, Sarah, seriously, I'm not going to force you to do it, but you need to advocate for yourself and take this next step. And I was very lucky that way.
I love that. We're not meant to do it alone, We're really not. Well, speaking of leadership, here in our own home at Arete Living, we have about 74% women in leadership. And so I'm curious to just hear from you. Who are some of these incredible women? Are there some that really stick out to you that have mentored you or supported you, or you've had a delight of supporting them?
Oh, I hope you're ready to be here for a very long time. The women that are part of Arete Living are the most phenomenal people that I know. Just as leaders, as friends, as just our everyday support for everyone in this company. We have Sarah Sutherland, the Vice President of Operations. Sarah's been with the company for 20 years. She will hate everything about this, but we're both Sarahs. We've been known as the Sarahs for 15 years. But we were just asked the other day when we were both on a call, like, hey, do you have a way of differentiating yourself? So we're not just saying Sarah by somebody who's relatively new to working with the two of us. And the joke is, we call her the queen. Oh, and she's been the queen for over a decade. And she started being called the queen because the ongoing joke here is that she hasn't had a survey deficiency since like 1847.
Oh, wow.
I mean, she's the quality queen. She's our go-to for everything.
Yeah.
She mentored and coached and trained so many of the executive directors within this company, myself included. She's still the person that we call when we have questions. She knows more than the rest of us combined.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I love that.
We have Stephanie Grade, who's the regional vice president for Ovation, who is just this incredibly strong, brilliant leader who, I mean, you walk through her community and you can just feel the camaraderie of the Ovation Heartwood Preserve team under her leadership. And then we have Afra Mayfield. Afra's the regional director of operations, and everyone who gets the opportunity to work with Afra will tell you that you know exactly where you stand with Afra at any point in time, that you know that she will support you and she will absolutely have your back as long as you are making decisions through the lens of our core value system. And just the level of support that people on her team feel because of her consistency, she's been a joy to have on the team. Then we have Lisa Coffey, who's our other regional director of operations, and everyone will describe her as our sunshine and rainbows.
Oh,
There's just, I don't think a negative thing has ever come out of her mouth in her life. I think she was born smiling, has never stopped. She just increases the energy in the room when she walks into the room.
I love that. It sounds like it feels really good for you to have these type of incredible leaders surrounding you.
Yeah.
It might be a lot easier sometimes to walk away and have a day or so, right? It sounds like it because you stay busy. You stay really, really busy. I know that right now you are serving as secretary and treasurer for the National Center for Assisted Living. Now, what is that like?
Oh, I love serving on the NCAL board.
Yes.
The National Center of Assisted Living is an organization that we've always been incredibly supportive of and belonged to as an association forever, as long as we've been a company. And their focus and advocacy in Washington, D.C. for senior living and for our residents, I just think is unmatched. And so just the opportunity to serve with them is something that I just feel very blessed to be able to do.
I love that. Now, for you to have all of these roles and all these hats and bring so much joy, so much passion, so much commitment, right? And that's something that I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of folks that look to you and look to you for your leadership. And they're constantly saying, if I know anything about Sarah, is that she's committed. But I feel like commitment takes passion and motivation. What motivates you to get up every day and to commit to everything that you're doing? So both in your personal and professional life, what motivates you?
I will say that every day when I get up, I almost started that with a lie because I said every day, almost every day when I get up, I keep a gratitude journal. Because I do think, especially over the course of the last 3 years, there are days that it can be really dark. And there are days that I will never forget the day that we lost our first resident to COVID. And the heartbreak of what our residents and our teams have experienced in the last 3 years have been incredible. You know, whether you're talking about a global pandemic that just was so detrimental to our residents, or even outside of the pandemic itself, but the isolation that our residents endured as a result of that, to the burnout of team members, to staffing challenges and shortages, and our teams working short staff. They wake up every single day and do that. And whether I wake up in the morning, I'm having a bad day or not, our residents are out there and they still need us no matter what else is happening in my world. So I know that it's important that as a leader, I come to the table with a smile. I know that it's important that I come to the table energized. That's right. And that at the end of the day, people do look to me to gauge whether or not it's a good or a bad day. And I take that very seriously. And that was true whether I'm the president. It was true when I was an executive director. And I knew that when I walked in to stand up in the morning. So I just learned that some of the first things I need to do every day is take stock of what I'm grateful for and why I'm doing what I do. And every single day.
It changes the day, doesn't it? I notice, and I love that you said, all right, not every day, but it's a goal. Because I have that too. Not the gratitude journal, but my life coach has kind of coached me into doing the best that I can every day, waking up and laying there, not picking up my phone, but laying there and listing out all the things I'm grateful for. and just saying thank you. Like, thank you for this, thank you for that, thank you for my family, for my community, for the people that love me, for the people I work with, and just having gratitude before the day starts. And sure, there's some hiccups, but it does impact the energy and how you carry on throughout the day.
It does. And the ability to remember that it's about something so much larger than just how I'm feeling today.
That's right.
And maybe it's now maybe one day you can teach me how to not start my day by picking up my phone and looking at my email first. But
because that will ruin the day real quick. You're getting some of the emails that I'm getting really fast.
That's very true. I did have a friend who stopped keeping her cell phone in her room at all and just went back to an alarm clock, and I can't do that either. So, but I do try at a minimum before I ever pick up the phone and actually have a conversation with somebody to list out what I'm thankful for.
You brought up the pandemic and how during that time it was critical to be a supportive leader, a positive leader, because on the ground, our frontline heroes were taking on a lot. And I know that personally because I had a loved one in one of our buildings. And I remember going around the back of the building to get, his window opened and talk to him through the window because we couldn't get in. We weren't allowed to get in. And he was just so, I would say lonely. When I talked to him after, he said what kept me going were the staff that came and talked to me, that, made sure that my routine, my everyday routine still had a level of love in it because I couldn't be around my loved ones. And I thought that was just so beautiful. So you're absolutely right that, that energy you're bringing in as a leader with love and care to your teammates, it's impacting our residents directly.
A single person having a bad day and a negative day and putting that out into a community does impact everyone that they come in contact with. And we know that. So it is, especially during the pandemic, our team members wore every single hat imaginable. There's the social contact, they were the family member, they were everything to our residents, because our residents outside of that were in such a level of isolation that I will never cease to be amazed by what our teams did and then continue to do related to isolation and during the pandemic in particular.
Yeah. Tell me about your team. Tell me a little bit more about your team and just what you feel about them, especially since you all have gone through so much together. I'm just curious as a leader, just what are your thoughts about your team?
I feel a little bit like a proud mama when it comes to the team. I can get a little mama bearish about the team as well. We were just on a call the other day with all of the executive directors, and there is so much love and so much passion, and I just want them to have everything that it is that they need. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's our primary job at a home office level. I want them to be happy. Mm-hmm. And I want them to love what they do. And what I see and feel from them is that they love what they do.
Absolutely.
And that's, it's unmatched. I mean, how can you ask for a better group of people to work with than people who show up every single day, love what they do, even on bad days, continue to show up, and then still treat each other with such dignity and respect and so much passion for their residents and their team members. And I could not love this team more than I do.
Oh, I love that. Would you say that that's the passion and the love is what stands out the most about them?
I would. You can see it in everything that they do. I mean, it's one thing when we talk about, like specifically just talking about resident care, or specifically just talking about, education and leadership through training, or all the specific tasks that they do. Yeah. That love and passion comes through in every one of those tasks. Like if you just checked your way down the list of everything that they do every day, is amazing that people can still come to work every day and pull a 24-hour report and do that with love.
Yes. Okay.
And yet they still do. It's pretty spectacular.
Now, I've loved hearing you share, how you got into this industry, the roles that you've held, the community and the team that surrounds you, that supports you and supports your vision for the organization. But now I'm curious, what is that vision? What is the future that you see here at Arete, and what do you want for it?
I see a community. I see a company that is a community where the residents that live within these communities are able to live whatever life it is that they want to live, surrounded by people who are enabling that.
Yeah.
That our team members have somewhere that they can walk through and know that they belong every single day, and that we are an organization that supports our team members in whatever their next chapter is as well, and whatever growth it is that they're looking for, knowing very well that not everyone wants to be a caregiver forever, and not even everyone is going to stay in senior living, and that's okay. If we are a great organization, then that makes us a leadership organization, a career development organization, because when people come to work and they're happy and they feel engaged and challenged and they know that we will support them in whatever that next step is, I know that they'll do everything in their power to take care of their residents. And for our residents, I will say that we have an entirely new generation of resident that, when senior living was first created, it was created for our current residents' parents' generation. This generation of people that we have coming into communities today, this baby boomer generation, these were people who grew up in the 70s. So if you really think about what that means, they're vibrant and they expect and deserve to live vibrant lives that should not be defined by the care that they need.
That's right.
That's a portion of what we do, not all of what we do. So really at the end of the day, it's for both our residents and our team members to have meaningful lives in the time that they spend with us.
I love that. And all I'm thinking is, all right, I'll come work for you full time. I'll come. I will follow you wherever you go. I will follow you, Sarah. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And I feel that, and I know the work that we did together, even though I'm a consultant, I've always felt a part of your team. I've always felt drawn to your vision that you want, not just for your team, but also for the residents as well. And it's just been absolutely incredible to be a part of that team and to be working under your leadership. So thank you for sharing that vision. So the last thing I guess I would want the people to know, which is something that I felt myself, is feeling like I'm not just a part of a team, but I'm also part of a family. And you all have made it clear through your actions, through your words, through the way that you build your strategy as well, that the residents as well are family. So I'm just curious to hear from you. What does family mean? What does it mean to you?
I joke that we could be here all day, maybe all weekend too. I am incredibly blessed to come from a just enormous family myself. I have 5 brothers and 5 sisters. I believe, I might get this number wrong, I'm pretty certain we're at 26 nieces and nephews. I was surrounded by so much love in my life. And I think that that's what it means. A different way of saying that to me, family means belonging. Like we just had, example that I will give is that last weekend was my dad's 75th birthday party. And so all the local siblings and nieces and nephews and everyone came over, and you look around the room and you couldn't ask for more different people, especially when you have that many people in a family. You're going to have a lot of different backgrounds, completely varying religious beliefs, political beliefs, but it doesn't matter because we walk into the room and we're family.
Absolutely.
And we love each other, and we know that every single one of us would be there to do anything for anyone else in that room.
That's right.
And to me, that's family. It does not matter. I do not care how they practice their belief. I do not care what their political background is. I know that at the end of the day, we will have each other's backs no matter what, no questions asked. And to me, that was family, that sense of belonging.
I love that. Well, you know what? I know that I felt it, and I know that I'm not the only one. And I only hope that we continue every single day working towards that vision where people feel supported, people feel loved, and most importantly, people feel like they belong. And I think that you have done that so far, and I'm excited to see how you continue to do it.
Thank you, Zanele.
Thank you so much for having us, Sarah.
Of course, I appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the People of Arete Living Pod. Find us on your favorite podcast platform and follow Arete Living on social media to keep listening in.